Hey, this is the Queen of Extreme, Francine, and you are listening to the Interactive Interview.
Interactive Wrestling Radio. Okay, in 5, 4, 3, 2. And welcome, everybody, to another edition of Interactive Wrestling Radio here at WrestlingEpicenter.com. And I am Patrick Kelly, being joined by Nick Knoll. James Walsh might be joining us. We don't know yet. We're still trying to get a hold of old Jamie Boy. You know, he's a free spirit. He just kind of, he's a wild horse that's hard to tame.
Well, let's be perfectly honest, Patrick. The real truth is James has a wife and 2 kids, and that will throw anybody's schedule off.
Absolutely. Well, the kids, the truth be told, the kids are the wild horses that can't be tamed. That's the truth. But, yeah, James might be joining us. We don't know. It'll be a surprise. But, Nick, you and I are going to talk about some big things that's happened in the last week or so regarding both WWE and TNA.
Yes,
they're both positive.
Both very positive, both very good. Let's start with the WWE news, and unless you've been living under a rock, ladies and gentlemen, then you are now, we're going to break it here, that Bruno Sammartino, the longest reigning WWF champion of all time, the man that laid the stage for what this company became, arguably the greatest babyface in the history of this business, has finally agreed to be inducted in the WWE Hall of Fame. According to reports, after numerous meetings with Triple H, where Triple H laid out the recent change in direction of the company to be the PG change, the wellness policy, and just several other factors, primarily apparently a hell of a lot of money, Bruno finally agreed to sign all the paperwork. He will be inducted in the Hall of Fame, very appropriately at Madison Square Garden, where, of course, he was the man, the biggest draw, throughout the 1970s. And, of course, that'll also mean an appearance at WrestleMania 29, where he'll come out and do what all the other Hall of Famers do, that nice little segment where they come out and wave, and just another great moment. Also, we're going to see apparently some DVDs, a DVD on his career. He'll talk he'll make appearances on the history of the WWE DVD, which is being planned. So yeah, this is huge news from a historical perspective, because at long last, we're finally going to see, arguably, as I said, the greatest babyface of all time get his due.
Oh, absolutely. Bruno Sammartino is a guy that really, and I know Hogan gets a lot of the credit for it, but Bruno was a guy that really helped shape professional wrestling into what it is today. And I remember as a kid always hearing stories about how great he was from my dad. So, he was my dad's favorite. So, you look at things like some of the matches he had, and the things like the highlight packages, like the one you saw on Raw this week. You really do see, and it just he's just one of those guys that you can't quite put your finger on what it is about him that makes him so special, but it shows. It just radiates off the television screen, and you just look at him and you see that guy's a star. And
right.
Bruno, he's one of the greatest stars that company's ever had. And me personally, I'm one of the guys that's kind of like, look, the Hall of Fame's really not that big of a deal. I still kind of feel that way. But Bruno going in there, this is probably the first time where they've inducted somebody, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Right. Well, personally, I think the bigger deal is going to be the DVD packages about his career. Like I said, they're planning a 50-year history of the WWF or WWE DVD sometime in 2013. And you know what? He needs to be on there, because although Buddy Rogers was the first WWF champion, he only held the belt for a very short period of time. Bruno, ladies and gentlemen, held the World Championship in the WWF, then the WWF, for 11 total years. His first title reign was 8 years long. Today we're lucky if title reigns go 8 weeks. Sometimes we're like...
And you will never see that again, by the way. You will never see a reign go that long just because of the nature of television and the way the product has changed.
Right.
It was more... Bruno was perfect for that era because television wasn't what it was. It was more of a... The television shows were more to hype the live events. So you didn't see Bruno on TV all the time, and that's why they were able to do that with him because he didn't get oversaturated, unlike, people like John Cena, who we're all sick to death of. But, yeah, Bruno is notable for that in that he is and will always be the longest reigning WWF champion of all time. I mean, that'll never be broken.
Well, I actually believe he is the longest reigning world champion in the history of pro wrestling for a single reign. I know he's definitely the longest reigning in terms of American companies. I know that the second closest is one of Verne Gagne's AEWA title reigns. And then, of course, Bruno actually then had a second reign where he held the belt for 3 years, which is the one. First one he had dropped it to Ivan Koloff, and then that's when Pedro Martinez won it. And then I don't want to say that Pedro wasn't as good a draw. Well, I don't want to say that Pedro was a bad draw by any stretch of the imagination, but Vince Sr. wanted the money that Bruno was drawing back, so he put the belt back on Bruno. According to the legends, it was originally, okay, I'll do it for a year. 1 year became 2, 2 years became 3, and then, of course, he dropped it to superstar Billy Graham, which is really, I think, one of the, if you talk about the feud Bruno may be most remembered for, he's remembered for a lot of them. He had a lot of great feuds with various wrestlers. Billy Graham one's the one I think a lot of people remember.
Yes, that one really stayed. Well, that was just such a great clash of personalities. And, those are the best pro wrestling feuds when you get two very different personalities working off of each other. But,
right.
Bruno being champion for as long as he was, that's just a testament, because obviously pro wrestling is a work. And, they're not really winning fights or anything. But it's really a testament to just how big a star Bruno was and how much people loved him. And that,
right.
They just kept running with him as champion because of how popular he was.
Right, and also Bruno's story, and it might come off like I kind of bash Bruno this week because the rumor, and I want to stress, the rumor is he's being paid as much as a WrestleMania main eventer to do these appearances. I do think that's a little too much, but that's my own personal opinion. I'm not going to knock Bruno in terms of what he was as a draw. And the story this guy has, a lot of people, have to understand there's an amazing story behind Bruno in that he was born in Italy as World War II was breaking out. I have a DVD called, I think it's Legends Never Die, where he and Roddy Piper are talking about it. His family had to hide up in the mountains and had to survive off of eating snow. And when he came to America, he was this pipsqueak, little small thing, was bullied, began working out, became this tremendous physical specimen. And, and a lot of people do not know this. It was not Vincent J. McMahon that made the decision to put the belt on Bruno. It was his longtime partner, Toots Mont, who said, Vince, I'm telling you, this guy as our champion will be money. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that you had the story of this Italian immigrant coming over, and it was the American dream. He comes, he works hard, he wins the world championship, and for better or worse sometimes, I've always believed Bruno was legitimate in the way that he behaved himself. He legitimately was this stand-up individual. He talks about how he didn't want to drink wine out in restaurants because he didn't want to see little children seeing him drink because he was their hero. And that's part of the reason why he's been so steadfast in his morals and the outrage that he's shown at times with things like the Kiss My Ass Club and the steroids and all the various problems that the WWF has had over the years. I mean, it's been a long time coming. This week, someone posted on our Facebook page, why would they induct someone like Mike Tyson before Bruno? And it's very simple. Bruno's been saying no all these years. The guy said no.
To him not going into the Hall of Fame, this is not for lack of trying on WWE's part. They tried, to get him into this.
Yeah. And I do believe this. Apparently, one of the speculations is that Vince McMahon had to agree to stay away from Bruno during WrestleMania weekend. I am fairly confident that if Vince presses his luck, Bruno might just slug him in the nose.
Bruno's like 70, what? Bruno's like, what, 71?
He might be older. I think he had like a heart problem not too long ago, but he still probably could kick most of our asses.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, I mean, look, look, people don't understand this. And I can respect someone like Bruno Sammartino, who had a very strong set of values, looked at what was going on at various times in the wrestling business, and said, no, I don't want to be associated with you anymore. And you know what? Here's the thing. I think it's an enduring part of his legacy is even with, at times, almost no promotion by the WWF in terms of his legacy after he left in the 90s, people still remember this guy. He is still one of the most talked about and beloved icons that this sport will ever have.
Oh, look at the reaction that the video package got on Raw this week. That was what made me happiest when they aired that video package, and the crowd reacted very positively to it. I was very impressed.
Well, the crowd probably wasn't born when he was champion, but I'll tell you what this does. It silences everybody who ever criticized that Hall of Fame, saying, oh, well, until Bruno's in, it doesn't mean anything. Well, now he's going in, so what's your excuse now?
Well, to be honest, James, I think the Hall of Fame is still just a TV show. I would like it if they're going to actually have a Hall of Fame. Have a Hall of Fame. Have a museum. Do what MLB, do what pro football does. Do what NASCAR's done. If you want to see what a world-class Hall of Fame looks like, just go look at the NASCAR Hall of Fame and the incredible building they've built down in Daytona Beach, Florida for it. I wish they would do something like that for their actual Hall of Fame and not just have it be a television event and a section on their website. Now, you make a great point. Now the great criticism as Bruno's not in there is gone. And who knows? I always say this. I would love if there were actually a standing WWE Hall of Fame.
It would be great if there was, but you also have to remember that when people are against something, they're going to find something to nitpick and use that as their reason for not supporting it. And that's what they did with TNA for the longest time. I won't watch it until they use a real ring again. They have to use the four-sided ring. And then those same people were still bitching and moaning when they did switch back to the regular ring. People are going to do the same thing with the Hall of Fame and Bruno. And you know what? I could go on a rant and a half about Trish being in, but other than Trish, I don't.
Which you have.
I do, and I will, and I'll probably continue to do so. But I will say this: everybody except Trish that's going in this year is a Banner Hall of Fame member.
Yeah, this is actually one of their better classes overall. I mean, back when I thought was already in there.
So did
I was like, when they announced him, I was like, what? He wasn't in there already? I was, it's funny, but
that's like Alice Cooper with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. When they announced Alice Cooper was going in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame last year, there wasn't a big outpouring of, all right, finally. It was kind of like, wait, you're telling me he wasn't already in? Like, what the hell?
Exactly. But, I mean, actually, even with Bruno going in there, I feel like there's still a lot of things with the Hall of Fame that, let's be honest, there's no criteria. It's just, who does Vince like, and who does Vince think he can make money off of? And sure enough, and I'm not trying to taint it or anything, but sure enough, they're bringing Bruno in. He's going to be doing DVDs and documentaries and things like that. And, Vince wants to be able to do those things. And that's great. The second a Bruno DVD gets released, I'm buying it. I'll tell you that right now, because that'll be like a huge piece of wrestling history. But there's still, like, even with Bruno going in there, you still have those same kind of, how do I want to phrase it? Kind of like those things that kind of illegitimize the Hall of Fame at least a little bit as far as who gets in and who doesn't.
Right. Well, I mean, Patrick, you talk about it, how it really is who Vince likes. A big thing about this year is who's a marquee name we can put in the New York market. And lo and behold, we're inducting Bruno, who was huge in the New York market. We're inducting Mick Foley, who's from New York and lives in the area. We're inducting Bob Backlund, who, even though certain people have kind of driven his title reign down to, oh, he was just Howdy Doody. He actually was a very popular champion at times, although he had a fan base. There's no denying that, no matter how you want to try to spin the facts. And again, another New York, but he was really from that time where they were only running the East Coast, Backlund was the last great.
It was the territory days, and that was the territory, but it's the territory that everybody heard about because that's where the magazines were printed. So when you strip it down, why was New York always the number one territory? That's where the magazines were printed, so that's where everybody...
Well, it's the media capital of the country, so...
Exactly, but that's what everybody heard about.
James is going to get awfully offended, but he just word for word repeated something Ric Flair said in his book.
Ric Flair did? Wow, we agree on something. You know, I agree on Ric Flair with politics on most things, too, which is kind of scary because I think he's a complete, total dickhead.
James, I love you to death, but if our recent relationship has proved anything, you and I are both complete and total dickheads.
I think so, yes.
No, gee whiz, fellas, and I'm just Butters.
Yeah, so...
There was a couple times, I'm going to tell this on air real quick. I'm not going to get into a big thing because I don't really want to, but there was a couple days that Patrick called me up saying, so, like, what's going on now? Like, is the site exploding again, or what the hell's going on? I'm like, I said it'll probably work itself out. We're just pissing and moaning on each other right now, so...
No, seriously, there was like a week-long period where I had no idea what was going on.
James and I are essentially, ladies and gentlemen, the same person. We agree on politics, we agree on wrestling for the most part, we agree on music for the most part, but there are just these little things that we disagree about, and when they come up, it turns into a fucking brawl. And since we can't punch each other in the face, we have to snipe at each other from across the country on Facebook, which leads to various issues, which fortunately has all worked itself out.
James, are you still with us? I guess he passed out on us. All right.
Yes, I know.
And he disappears from time to time. He's the Phantom.
Yeah, which, you know what? I was actually going to ask what his thoughts were on Bruno going into the Hall of Fame. So
I think we can all pretty much agree, based on some of the editorials he's written in the last few weeks, that he would be fully in favor of Bruno going in. But Bruno going in does add legitimacy to the Hall of Fame because no WWE, WWF, WWF, whatever, no Hall of Fame from that company has any legitimacy as long as Bruno's not in it. And yeah, right, so it does add legitimacy to it from that aspect, but it's still not going to change a lot of the things. It's like, okay, like I said, it's people that Vince likes and people that Vince thinks he can make money off of. And that's the only criteria for going in.
And that's the only reason I'm not completely having a coronary over Trish Stratus going in, because I'm not naive. Sex sells. Sex will always sell. And sex must have been good, too. But the...
Wait, I think
but I don't. That's why I don't have a problem, because they're going to be able to do, even though there is already at least one out there, probably a couple. A Trish DVD, and you know what? She'll always be, and she will be farmed out to local TV markets as a weather girl, and she'll be able to say that she's a WWE Hall of Famer on there. So I guess whoever wants to know what the weather's going to be like in Calgary, it's fucking cold. Can tune in and hear Trish Stratus say she's a WWE Hall of Famer. So there you go.
Well, yeah, this from the guy that wants Brock's wife in the Hall of Fame.
I think that if you're going to base it, here's why. I did say this.
No, there's no. This is why. This is why. And let's just admit it. I'm going to call you on this. There are people that you like, and I'm not faulting you for it.
I don't like Sable. I actually really dislike Sable.
Right, but there are other
yeah, you do. That's why I'm shocked to hear you say it.
There are other people, though, that you do like, that you have a relationship with, that, also you're trying to get interviews from, who aren't ever going to be in that Hall of Fame, who you probably feel, who have contributed a lot to wrestling, who have contributed a lot to wrestling, who aren't going to get that same just dessert. So you're kind of raging about Trish going in, when she has contributed a lot to wrestling. She was a very popular performer. She was easily the most talented wrestler in the WWE at one point. And you know what? No, I do like Lita, ladies and gentlemen, but Trish did not hurt herself every other week. that you're upset that Trish is going in, why other people that you do like aren't getting that same credits, and also someone you had a lot of respect for, and Sherry Martel, had to wait forever to get in the Hall of Fame, which was a travesty.
Well, to be fair, it was a travesty, but it also wasn't done then either. You know, she went in 2007? Well, when did they really rebirth the whole Hall of Fame concept?
2004.
2004. So it was really only 3 years she had to wait. And you know what? Most of the guys who went in those first 2-3 years were guys that should have been in there. Everybody knew had to be in there. Heenan, Iron Sheik, obviously Hogan, Piper. The list can keep going on and on, but these were guys that, when you think WWE Hall of Fame, we're pretty much like, okay, well, if you're going to do it, you have to have this. And that's why I'm surprised that this year, even though Foley is even like he's a little young, but I can live with it, thing, the fact that they've gotten Foley in there and Bruno in there and Backlund in there, you've got 2, arguably 3 generations of guys going in who nobody could say doesn't deserve to be there. So if there's one person on the list that I could say, give me a freaking break here, then I think that they're doing an okay job.
Well, that's great to hear you say that and everything, but going back to the Sable thing, one of the reasons you didn't feel like Trish belonged in there was that she wasn't in the company that long, only, 6.5 years or so? But
right.
Sable, she was only hot for 2 or 3 years? Maybe less?
Right.
Well,
then
here's why, and this is completely true. I'm not going to battle about a calendar. The reason that Trish is going in is because she made a media impact, and she made an impact with the fans, and she was very popular, and in my opinion, everything was not, how can I put this? Her accomplishments have been embellished based on other means. That's the diplomatic way of putting it.
How do you know that? I know what you're talking about, but how do you, where's your, or is it just
I have
suspicion?
no proof, but I think it's obvious to anybody with a brain. I mean, come on now. They gave her a tearful goodbye. I mean, really? Nobody in that company worked harder to get a tearful goodbye? Half the guys who leave there get shit on their way out. I mean, that's just it. That was clearly a reason. But let me make my point, because we can argue about this all day long.
Yeah,
the reason why I said Sable should go in above her is A, she came first, and B, she did much the same thing. And she was the one who really, taking Miss Elizabeth out of the equation, arguably taking Missy Hyatt out of the equation, she is the one who brought, even taking Sunny out of the equation, though Sunny's already in, so it's kind of a moot point in that regard. She's the one who brought that complete sex appeal, mixed with the violence, did the Playboy that everybody had to have, and there was non-wrestling fans who were asking me if I had seen the Sable Playboy, who owned it, and I didn't, and that's the truth, I didn't. It just was media mogul popularity that she had. So, I mean, if she went in, would I be bitching and moaning, well, if she goes in, Mark Merrow should go in first because he actually broke his ass for this business and she's just a two-bit hooker and all this other shit? Probably I would. But if Trish Stratus is going in, then you have to give it to people who went before who did the same thing, and I think Sable did the same thing. We could argue, Trish was a better worker, but,
come
whatever.
On, James, come on. I can name good Trish Stratus matches. I can say that there was a marked improvement from the first time she stepped in a ring, had no idea what the fuck she was doing, to the very end where she actually could have a very good match. Sable, seriously, name one good match that Sable had where the fans popped that didn't involve her clothes getting torn off.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, I think Sable got worse.
No, she did get worse because she was hot when she started. The fans were hot; they wanted to see it. But it's like that. Did anybody? What's that show called? Oh God, I can't remember. The co-ed. There's a co-ed show like a kids in college and the weird looking characters. They used to show it on Comedy Central, and the whole story was based on college guy desperately wants to bang the girl he idolized in high school. Now they're in college together. So badly wants her. He's got a best friend who's looking, but she loves him, and she's obviously crazy about him. But he never goes for her because he keeps this model concept in mind of this hot girl that he wants to sleep with. The ending of the show is he sleeps with the hot girl, and then it's kind of like, okay, then what? And then the one who actually was nice, and then he probably could have gotten along with, and way more than just one night, because Brian is so offended that he did that she leaves him, and it just becomes a big mess. It was a cartoon show, but it became like a drama. Anyway, I don't remember what the hell it was called, but it was funny. That's what happened to Sable. The fact is, we saw her naked, and that was it. I mean, I don't know how much. Once you see what you wanted to see, it's kind of like, all right. To some extent.
Well, it's funny because that kind of became a thing with. It's funny that you mentioned that because that really did kind of become a thing with the WWF. The girls that posed for Playboy, it was almost like a curse because they would either fall off the map, their popularity would decrease, or they'd be gone within a year for one reason or another. It was, most of the girls that posed for Playboy with the WWE did not have really long, sustained runs following, those pictorials.
I mean, even Christy Hemme did, and her pictorials sucked. I saw WWE photo shoots that were way hotter of her than their Playboy pictures, but even she fell to that. And who else was in Playboy? Ashley Massaro? I mean, where the hell is she?
Maria.
Yeah.
Maria, who is still drawing a paycheck in the wrestling business to hang out with her boyfriend.
Oh, that's right, yeah. Actually, the only one I can think of that lasted a few years after posing for Playboy was Tori Wilson.
Which, by the way, James, when she goes in the Hall of Fame in a couple years, then you can bitch and rant.
No, you can't bitch at Tori. She was nice. We had her on the show. She was nice.
No, she was very nice, and I kind of felt bad that I've been so critical, but it doesn't change the fact that I can't name one single thing she did that I thought was at all entertaining. Not
even
storyline-wise.
My all-time favorite story. My all-time favorite story about Tori Wilson is one you told me that I guess was from a Raven interview you did or had heard, where she was valeting him because apparently she got paired up with every single guy in the history of that business at one point or another, and the spot was simple. He was going to whip his opponent over to where she was standing, and she had to trip the guy and run. First night, she runs without tripping him. Second night, she trips him without running. Third night, she doesn't do anything.
Yeah, then I think the way the story ends is Raven goes to the back, goes directly to Vince McMahon. Easy for me to say, and says, "I can't work with this cunt. Pair me with someone else." So, and that was his.
Is that the same night Vince looked at him and said, "Who hired Raven?"
Oh.
I heard Raven tell that story. He was just sitting in the locker room. This is when he was with the WWF, and he was just sitting in the locker room. And one day Vince McMahon walked by and was like, "When did we hire Raven?"
Well, I mean, he's an example of a guy who had all the potential in the world, but it just never clicked in the big companies. I mean, ECW was huge. WCW, he was WWE, he never really...
He had a good run in WCW.
Yeah, he had a pretty good run. I mean, the first run was good, the Flock, and then nothing really after that ever.
Yeah. Right.
Well, I mean,
never did anything.
You know what? It could be worse. It could have been Shane Douglas.
Well, Douglas' best run. Yeah, Douglas's best run. I mean, he had runs everywhere. He had runs in the early 90s in the WWF and WWE.
No, he was in the Royal Rumble, 91.
Yeah, you guys would probably remember this. From what I've heard, he was supposed to be a rock and roll babyface, or some guy that would come out to like rock and roll music. Is that true, or is that just the internet making shit up because he had long hair?
He was somewhat true. He was supposed to be like the young hot guy. It's like, hey, look at this blue chipper. That was kind of what he was.
He had long hair. He had blue eyes. I don't know that he was necessarily a rock and roller or anything like that. He did, and this is true, and I've never seen this, but it must have been at house shows or something. When Shawn Michaels got hurt, he did team with Marty Jannetty as the Rockers for a short time.
Ooh.
He told that story in our interview, and I've never seen it. I never saw that happen, definitely not on television.
Right. Well, there was a period in '91 where Shawn blew out his ACL, which Shawn swears to God that is what later caught him in '97, whether it was the same injury flaring up again or he re-aggravated it years later. But there was a story where Shawn hurt his ACL riding a motorcycle, so it would make sense that if Shane was still in the company in '91, they probably would have paired him with Shawn.
And then everyone 90. Thinking about it, it might have also been 90 because they had that really awkward match at SummerSlam where Shawn basically did nothing and Marty did the whole match against Power and Glory.
Right.
And they were pretty much inactive for the next month or two until Survivor Series.
Series, yeah.
In that part of 90.
Yeah. Well, so what you're saying is in the early 90s at WWF house shows, people were wondering, God, why the hell is Shawn Michaels so off tonight? Which by the way, congratulations, Shane. You needed $16,500. You couldn't raise $3,800. You worthless piece of shit. Now just shut your goddamn company. Shut your retread, half jaw, spits in the face of everything you've been saying for years. Company down. Retire. End your fucking career, you fat old man. I'm glad it failed. If you want to see the spirit of ECW live on, ladies and gentlemen, Combat Zone, AAW, PWG, much better wrestling, much better hardcore wrestling, and oh yeah, it's not a bunch of fat old men trying to recreate what they were trying to do. The only exception is Stevie Richards, who knows how to go to a goddamn gym and work out.
I'm going to say this, and I mean this in all honesty, and this is not me shilling because I want an interview. I respect Shane Douglas. I wish this was working better for him. With that said...
Of course it's not working better for him. He probably yells at every promoter that tries to work with him about how great he was. He posts a long video on YouTube about how we're going to bring back Extreme, the stuff that's too tough for dumb old Dixie and Vince. You know what, Shane? They've made a hell of a lot more fucking money than you ever will.
Well, you know what? Like I said, I still respect Shane. I still think he's was a hell of a talent. I've seen recent stuff, and he's, much slower and much more bloated than he used to be, but he's still a talent in and of himself. But you're right. I mean, for whatever reason, this is not working.
Because no one wants to see ECW in 2013.
I would love to see ECW in 2013. I mean, I watched the other day, and legitimate. If you want to look at a new ECW, where it's a company that has that renegade spirit, it really is TNA. And I know people will get pissed off that I said that, but it really is. They've got more of the mix that ECW had than a lot of the companies you mentioned. A lot of the companies you mentioned is very hardcore and very things like that. TNA has a little hardcore, a little boobs, a little butt, a little chicks, a good storylines. Some of them push the boundaries of good taste sometimes. I mean, if you really want to see what was ECW, I think that the rebel company right now is TNA.
Well, I actually didn't want to say that, but then at the end of the day, and this will be something that will probably piss a lot of people off, TNA is a national company. There's no way you can deny that. They're on a major cable company. They do house shows all over the country. They're about to start taking their TV on the road. ECW was a giant indie. It had syndicated television, got pay-per-views, but they were pay-per-views that aired an hour later than everything else, and the only way they were ever advertised was when they bought time on, or time was given to them by Vince McMahon to advertise on their show. And you know what? At the end of the day, outside of a brief period on TNN, which they screwed up somehow, mainly because they pissed off all the promoters, and once all the network executives, and once the WWF was available, there was no chance that we're going to get a reprieve. It was gone. It was a very short-lived national company. You could say ECW was national for 1 year, no matter how much, your Dave Metzlers, your Mike Johnsons, your Shane Douglases, like this asshole Steve O'Neill, who's apparently the real owner of Extreme Rising, wants to spin it. It was a one-year national company with a low-rated show that couldn't outdraw Roller Jam.
James, you got a rebuttal or anything? Did James leave again? Oh, damn it. Now I actually got to say stuff. But, I mean, I'm more along the lines of you, Nick. Not that I'm going to bash ECW and what it was, but what I am sick of all these attempts to try and recreate it.
Well, you know what? I'll let up on ECW when Shane says the words. And, Shane, I will apologize to you. If you just say the words, you know what? Some of it's my fault. I burned my bridges. I didn't work with the right people. I made mistakes too. I'm not asking you to take all the blame, but just at what you're 55 years old now, Shane. I mean, you look 75, but you're 55, I think. Admit it. You screwed up too. That's all I want from this guy. I mean, I'm sorry. This guy is still acting like he's 30 years old in the prime of his career, and I think it's time to move on. I did mention TNA going on the road, and that is the other big news story. That is that TNA is no longer in the Impact Zone. And Patrick, I believe your sentiment is, God.
Yay!
As announced last week by Dixie Carter, TNA will be going on the road. They will do one live show a month, or one live show every 2 weeks, and they'll tape another show either that night or the next night in the same arena. Personally, I think this is a great move. We've been talking about it for a while, where the Impact Zone is just so overexposed. Those fans see it all the time. It's time to move on, get a live crowd that's going to change up a little bit. And I like the way they're doing it, where they're not going to say, okay, every single week we're in a brand new location. We're going to, try to save a little bit of money by double taping, which is what the WWF did many years ago when Raw first started.
Well, WCW did it too, to some degree. They were always live, but people always talk about Nitro being on the road and stuff. Nitro was very often filmed at Disney World, especially in, like, 96. So filming in the same location is not necessarily the bad thing.
Right. And I posted this on our Facebook page, and I think it's a fair statement. A lot of times we hear about what TNA needs to do. I think part of the reason it's lasted is the people running it understand what they need to do, but they don't go charging headfirst into it and overshoot what they're going for. They've always been...
Actually, the exception to that was the Monday Night Wars, and we know how that worked out.
Well, you know what I honestly think that was, and I don't want to bash the guy because I've already used up all my bashing credits with James this week. I think that was Hogan convinced people. CC, we drew 1.5 against them on Monday Nights, brothers. I'm telling you, it's gonna work. They want us to go to that. They want us on Monday night. It's going to generate that energy. They said it wouldn't work back in '95. I'm telling you, brothers, we can do this. Dixie, let's do this. And you know what? They couldn't do it.
No, they couldn't. And I wish it could have worked, but they weren't ready for that yet. Now, I got a story real quick.
Oh, God.
It involves a former guest on the show, Trinity. And
oh, God.
Where's she now?
A stunt double. She's back to being a stunt double. I haven't talked to her in years, but she's back to being a stunt double for movies. She basically, look, I'll give her credit. She wanted to make it to the WWE. That was her goal. She made it there, and she has had and expressed no interest in being on the indie scene or anything since she made it to her ultimate goal. She wanted to make it to WWE. She did. Done. Give her credit. But with that said, back then, I'm talking 2004, 2004, was all about, we got to get this show on the road. We got to do house shows. And apparently that was the vibe of all the guys backstage. And Jarrett and Dixie would tell them the same thing. Financially, it would be suicide for us to go on the road right now because we wouldn't draw. So, yeah, you're right. They did do things smart. They grew the brand before they started to do these things. And if they think that the brand is strong enough to go to certain areas, which are wrestling hotspots, to do live tapings, I think that's a good thing. I think if Bound for Glory proved anything, is that you can have a live crowd outside of the South and outside of just New York. And that's what that proved. I mean, they proved it again, Phoenix, and I wasn't there for the Royal Rumble. I mean, that was a good crowd for Royal Rumble, I thought. With that said, what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to stick to those hot spots, Chicago being a great place to start. Go to New York. Go to the beast, the belly of the beast. They can't go to Bumblefuck, Wyoming, and hope to get a hot live crowd because they won't do it. Unfortunately, if history shows us anything, they can't go to L.A. and expect to get a hot live crowd because that didn't work out so good. Philadelphia worked out good for them. Last year's Bound for Glory, 2011. If they stick to wrestling hotbeds, they're going to do fine. It's in those question mark areas that I worry.
Right. And you know what? And I'll say this: they are smart, despite the constant portrayal that the internet loves to give TNA of being an incompetent place that can't do anything right. There's a reason this thing is entering year 11. There are smart people running this show, despite what anyone wants to tell you. I think they are going to say, okay, let's be careful. We know where we draw well. We know where we don't draw well. We can work on getting higher numbers in those areas we don't draw so well by going with house shows there. But, yeah, let's stick to it. I think if you look at their early tour schedule, it's places that they traditionally do very well. It's Atlanta, which I think they did a pretty decent crowd with for Bound for Glory a couple of years ago. I think they also did a pretty good crowd there for them. You have to understand they were talking TNA numbers versus WWE numbers. A good crowd for TNA is a very different thing from a good crowd for WWE. They're going to those hot spots. They're going to places like Texas that they've done well, Chicago, Atlanta. So I think for the first couple months, they're sticking their toe out carefully. They're not diving in head first and about to smack their head on the concrete below.
And I think that, like I said, that is a smart thing to do. I hope they don't settle into one place ultimately. Like, oh, well, we did really good in Chicago, so we need to keep doing it there all the time. Because then you're just going to run into the same problem with the Impact Zone. But we'll see what happens with it, and it's exciting. And I think that's part of the reason why being a TNA fan is actually more interesting than being a WWE fan, other than the fact that I think the product is just vastly superior right now. And I'm not talking about production. I'm talking about, do you enjoy it, yes or no? If that is your criteria for if a show is good or not, then I cannot say with any validity that WWE keeps my interest, because I watch Raw on fast forward in 5 minutes, and that's the truth. It just doesn't interest me.
And to be perfectly honest, and I hate to throw this out there, but TNA always gets bashed for using old guys like Hogan and Sting and whatever. And you look at WrestleMania, I mean, it's becoming like, who do they rely on to get WrestleMania to sell? The Rock, Triple H, The Undertaker, Brock Lesnar, guys who were, stars over a decade ago.
When WWE ran a show called Livewire, which was WWF Mania, and it became Livewire, and Vic Venom made his debut, who later became Vince Russo. Yep.
The man.
There was a segment with him and Sonny running down WCW, and they both were calling it the, quote, over 40 club, and saying, we're not about that in this company. We're about the young guys getting a chance. What's the age number of those guys you just mentioned?
All of which have got to be close. The one who might not be 40 yet has got to be Rock.
No,
I think he's like 38, 39.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's it.
He is 40. He was 28 in the election in 2000, so he'd be turning 41 this year.
So,
Jesus.
I actually misspoke. I meant to say Brock would be the one that's not 40, I don't think, yet.
No, he's not 40. He would be 35. So.
But
still, he was still a product from another era that's doing special appearances.
Right, and, and that's one of my big issues with the WWE. You know what? People can say, oh, well, TNA is all about the old guys. I'm like, yeah, but you know what? Sting appears most of the year with TNA. He may not do the house shows, but he makes pretty much all the TV tapings. Hogan will miss one every once in a while, but he doesn't wrestle. He's playing the GM role. WWE is about to give a bunch of money to Brock, who, how many appearances has he made since returning for the match with John Cena. I think legitimately you could probably count them on your hands. I do not believe he's made over 20 appearances.
Guys, I'm going to leave in just a second, but I wanted to leave you with this.
Uh-oh.
And I mentioned this on the Facebook wall. Hogan has done a good job of not trying to steal the show. And you could say whatever you want about the wedding angle and all that. And all that's, legitimate criticism. It probably would have happened whether it was Hogan or not. But when he came out a few weeks ago, he didn't come out and rip his shirt off and cup his hand to his ear and basically, to some degree, blow everybody else out of the water that was in the ring. He came down as a GM. He did his thing. That was it. Still got a good reaction. I'm not going to say he didn't. But Hogan has made a conscious effort, I think, to be a team player this time, and I think that it shows.
I'll actually say this. I agree with you. I do think that kind of after the first year and the whole Immortal stuff was Hogan flexing his ego. I do think kind of since the end of Immortal, he has made a conscious effort to be more of a team player, and that even goes so far in his interviews. He actually talks about TNA now, which was something that drove me insane, that he'd do interviews with people and he would barely mention TNA. He now actually seems like he's trying to get the company over, and maybe part of it is that that his ego's been kind of bruised, and there's been other things going on in his life, and there's a part of him that just likes having an outlet and a place to go and work and still be involved in the business that he's a huge star in, like TNA. So I'll give him credit. We are seeing Hogan pull back his ego, and it is helping the show overall. I'll definitely give him credit for what he's done the last couple months.
I'm curious for Patrick's opinion on that, because I don't think he posted on the Facebook wall about it.
I'm fine with it as long as Hogan, and I've been saying it since he got there. It's like he can't be the main focal point of the show, and I think lately he hasn't been, and I think that's for the best overall. And when he is there, he's actually trying to get guys over, like Bully Ray, so who is going to turn heel, by the way. I'm still waiting for that to happen. But, overall, I've been... What'd you say?
I said it has to happen logically, but I've enjoyed it for what it is, and I popped huge. I was marking out huge when you did the hookup stuff, because that's just cool, man.
To be honest, though, James, I know it was a hookup, obviously, but he kind of looked more like a fat Ultimate Warrior.
Demolition Axe.
It was Demolition Axe doing the Hulk up, ladies and gentlemen. If you didn't see it, it was last night on Impact, and he was teaming with Sting, so he also had the war paint on. So it's like it was a fun moment. I was laughing because I'm like, oh my God. Honestly, though, if he would have shaken the ropes, he would have been the Ultimate Warrior.
Which, oh boy, let's bring him back. Yeah, here's a guy who I would say, going back to our earlier discussion, I would say that Warrior, just given the few years that he was hot, would be Hall of Fame caliber. I don't think you will ever see him show up, though.
I think, you know what, at some point you will, because they're always looking for that as long as it's about a marquee name and it's not like a voting panel or something like that actually could control this sort of thing. At some point they're going to be looking for that big marquee name. They're going to be going someplace that was that kind of hotbed for wrestling, as we talked about. They're going to think, let's induct the Warrior, and he will show up, and he'll probably rant for 20 minutes, and he'll probably look at he'll probably look at Jinder Mahal and say, well, thank God you're wearing a raghead.
Are they brave enough to give him a live mic?
How many times have they given Ric Flair a live mic at that event?
That's true, and Ric Flair's just drunk and like crazy. Ultimate Warrior could downright, offend people.
Yeah, well, oh God! So they give the Iron Sheik a live mic sometimes. We've seen what happens when he gets one of those. The Iron Sheik.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, I will make you humble. Oh, God. Oh, Lord. Yeah. Although, you know what I would like to see? a shoot interview with the Iron Sheik and the Ultimate Warrior, because the insanity alone would be worth the price of admission.
Didn't they almost get into a fight at like a convention or something?
You know what? I have no idea. It definitely sounds like it'd be within the realm of possibilities.
Yeah, I remember hearing that apparently Iron Sheik walked up to Warrior at some like autograph signing or convention or something and started yelling at him. So,
yeah. Well, that definitely sounds like something the Sheik would do.
Yeah. Good old Sheiky, baby.
Oh, Lord. The Sheik. Yeah, Patrick, I do actually want to ask this. Who do you think's crazier, Sheik or Warrior?
I don't know. Warrior's more articulate, but I don't know if that makes him more sane.
Well, okay, now I'm really going to piss people off, but you know what? Hitler was considered a pretty articulate guy, too.
Who is?
Hitler.
Oh, yeah, of course. Exactly. Well, exactly. That's my point. Yeah, Warrior is like more well-spoken, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's less crazy. If anything, it just means he's more. It just means he's more dangerous. I guess I'd say Warrior. Because I think Sheik, there's a level of like harmlessness there to where people just don't even really take him seriously. Whereas Warrior, like he'll say things that'll just drive people insane.
With Sheik, I think part of it is he's a lot of times he may be under the influence of drugs and alcohol. Another part of it might be that he kind of plays it up because it gets him appearances on different radio shows and things. Mm-hmm. With Warrior, this is what this guy actually believes, ladies and gentlemen. This is a man that published a 4-issue comic book series. The last half of each issue would just be his long-winded rants about whatever the hell he wanted.
I remember reading the first issue of that comic series, and I read it, and I put it down, and I was like, I have no idea what I just read. Read. I was like, that made absolutely no sense. What I just read. I was like, I don't understand it.
Patrick, if you want to laugh, go to that guy with the glasses, and they're somewhere on there. Two of the reviewers on, Linkara and Spoonie, Noah Atweiler, who's apparently a bit of a nut job himself, from what I understand, did review.
He went through depression, and it led to him having a freak out, and he ended up leaving the site.
Yeah. Apparently, they did the reviews on all 4 Warrior series. And I have seen the one for number 4. It's a little hard to understand because Linkara does a storyline in his videos that is a tribute to comic book writing. But the jokes themselves are pretty funny for the most part.
Yeah.
You might
actually, it's funny you mentioned that. I actually today, right before I got on the phone, I got done watching Linkara's reviews of All-Star Batman and Robin.
Yeah, God, you want to talk crazy, Frank Miller.
That dude is, he's fucking crazy. Like, I don't think, and this is from reading his recent comics and watching The Spirit, which somehow that man got a directorial job. I don't know how. This guy who has no experience in film somehow gets a director's chair, but okay.
Well, I actually do know how that happened. It was that he was considered. Well, when they did Sin City, because a lot of those shots were recreations of his comic book panels, he got a director's credit, and he was really good friends with the guy that created The Spirit, apparently. So when they were adapting that movie, he really chased being involved with it because that guy had passed away, and that was what he thought would be a loving tribute to his good friend.
Well, that was a wonderful, faithful adaptation there, buddy. But, watching that movie and reading his comics, I'm convinced that he has never met a woman in his life.
Yeah. For those that do not know what we're talking about, Frank Miller is a comic book writer. He is most known for the series, the mini-series, The Dark Knight Returns, or The Dark Knight Strikes Again. I now I'm still on a title, but...
he also did Batman Year One, and both of which are very good.
Both of which are some of the greatest comic books ever written, and they're very key in changing the public persona of Batman from the Adam West series to kind of what it's become in more recent years again, with a Dark Crusader, a war on crime. This is Linkara, Louis Lovehog, who has said this. somewhere along the lines, Frank went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and turned into this racist, sexist maniac of a person. Just seriously, watch the videos on All-Star Batman and Robin. If you ever want to have your depiction of Batman and Robin ruined, those are the comic books to look after.
Yeah, and again, just watching Lewis's videos, I just kind of look at them and I go, I don't think Frank Miller likes superheroes. Like, his portrayal of Batman and Robin is messed up. His portrayal of Wonder Woman is messed up. His portrayal of Superman is messed up. And I'm just sitting there like, this dude just doesn't like superheroes. I mean, that's the only thing. It's almost like he said, I'm going to take the famous DC superheroes, I'm going to make them into Watchmen, which is all about fucked up superheroes.
You know what? That's probably what he did. He probably thought he could do it. Look, in the comic books, or the reviews, Linkara refuses to call Wonder Woman and Batman and Wonder Woman. He calls Batman Crazy Steve, and he calls Wonder Woman Bonkers Betty.
That's how far off they were. And, wow, we're really going off a tangent here, but is there anything else wrestling-related that we want to talk about before we go?
Boy, let's just, WrestleMania is taking shape, but it's still a few weeks off. Elimination Chamber is sometime.
I think it's next week, isn't it?
Yeah. Seriously, next week?
I think it might be.
Have they even made it official who's all in the Elimination Chamber match?
I don't know. Maybe it's 2 weeks. I don't know. I know it's coming up soon, but I do want to praise the WWE for something that they might do for Elimination Chamber. I do like that they're not title matches. The Chamber matches this time around, it is a number one contenders match is one of them. And I'm like, okay, well, that's better, because I never liked the idea of, oh, hey, these 10 guys that lost the Royal Rumble, they get a world title shot in 3 weeks anyway, so it doesn't matter. And I was just never a big fan of that. So I do like that the Chamber match is at least a number one contenders match. And I know that they've talked about doing Cena, Ryback, and Sheamus versus The Shield, and I think right now it's just a six-man tag. But I'm thinking, it's like, dude, they could make that like a War Game style Elimination Chamber match. And if they do that, I think that would be a really good idea.
I think it would be a good idea in one perspective. The other perspective I kind of have is I feel like the Shield's kind of lost its oomph because they've kind of been restricted to doing the same thing every week, which is running out and attacking the same people, and just they're now clearly just Paul Heyman's enforcers. Even though we all knew what it was, once you kind of confirm it, it's like, okay, that you're kind of losing what was kind of making this kind of cool. Now, like I said, I still have high hopes for Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins. Rick Reigns is a cure for insomnia, not seen since Roderick Strong. I am really mean tonight. But
I like Roman Reigns as the muscle. I don't mind him as like being that guy, but to me, Rollins and Ambrose are the true talents of the group.
Yeah. The problem is, I feel like if you do that, the WWE cannot resist themselves. It's going to end with Cena, Ryback, and Sheamus winning, which honestly I feel like that would be a bit of that's going to be a huge mistake, because once you have them lose to the big three babyfaces, essentially, because let's be honest, outside of The Rock, if you want to name the top three babyfaces in the WWE right now, you could make the argument that it's definitely Cena. You can definitely make the argument, as much as I hate him, it's Ryback, and it could be the argument that it's Sheamus. I mean, maybe Del Rio is the other big one now.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest, Del Rio is my favorite babyface that they have going. Of the full-time wrestlers, I think he's my favorite babyface right now, which is kind of sad. But
somebody said that, whoever the new guy is, I'm blanking on his name, the new guy, the guy who was Creed fan on the forums, he said, is it just me, or are they kind of turning Del Rio into Eddie Guerrero?
They might be doing that, and that's something that kind of reminds me of something. Is Rey Mysterio in the doghouse or something? Because it seems weird that Alberto is the new Hispanic Mexican hero, and Rey seems like he has nothing going right now. And in the Rumble, which was supposed to be his return, he didn't do anything. So it just kind of makes me go, like, is he in the doghouse or something?
Well, here's what I understand. This is part of my theory, part what I've heard reported. One theory is that, you know what, Ray's older and he hurts himself all the time. So Del Rio's a better option because he's younger, and he so far has only had, I think, one big injury that kept him out for any extended period of time. I think it was a back issue, which I think was something that just kind of flares up when you're in the wrestling business. It's just, you might take a bump wrong. The other thing is, apparently there is something going on in Ray's personal life that he's asking time off for, and his appearance in the Rumble and his subsequent appearances on Raw have kind of just been to get him back out there, but he's not back. He's not on the road full time again, and whatever it is, if it's something with his family or, anything else going on financially, I just wish Ray honestly the best. Despite some of the things I've said tonight, I actually do not want to see people in horrible situations, and I include Ray in that. I hope that whatever going on can be resolved quickly.
Right, let's hope so. Because, Rey Mysterio, he's one of the greatest of all time, so, you wouldn't want him to be in any kind of bad situation or to leave the WWE unceremoniously or anything bad like that. So, here's hoping the best for him. But, but going back to the Elimination Chamber, I really like, even though, yes, you're totally right, that they could just totally do like a, Cena, Ryback, and Sheamus squash fest and just have them destroy the Shield or whatever. But I like the idea of a War Game style Elimination Chamber, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe they should do that from now on, because that's actually kind of a cool idea.
Well, it's kind of part of the reason why you like Lethal Lockdown, for the most part, when it comes on TNA, because it's a fun concept. War Games, for the most part, people always enjoy it. And you know what? You're right. If they could find something to do it really well with, and I want you want to have a good storyline, a big feud that people want to see get in a match like that. It definitely would be a cool idea.
Oh yeah, and the Shield would be the perfect ones to do it with. Again, it's kind of that fear. It's like, do they want to? Because we talk about that all the time with Cena, where it's like he has to be Superman. I love how they always say that Cena overcomes the odds, quote unquote. And I kind of look at it, it's like, isn't Cena basically the odds at this point in time?
Absolutely, Cena is the odds. I hate to say it, but people saying, that John Cena is the underdog in any situation, like saying Anderson Silva is the underdog when he fights a UFC fight. No, he's not. No one's ever going to look at Anderson and say, hey, you have the most title defenses in UFC history. You have the single longest title reign in UFC history. The president of the company calls you the greatest of all time. You're really the underdog here. And that's the same with Cena. I don't like Cena, but the way they book him, he's not fighting the odds. They don't even have him get injured. We talk about this all the time. You say what you want about Hogan, say what you want about Austin. There would be times where they would be vulnerable, usually by selling an injury of some kind. But Cena, it almost never happens.
What are you talking about, Nick? I'm John Cena. The only things I sell is merchandise.
You sure as hell don't sell movie tickets, that's for sure.
But
yeah, but it just, we talked about this once. One night, he got thrown through a light, which exploded. He was back the next night.
Yes, and that was like, okay, you just took any potential for me feeling sorry for this guy, and that's what they do when they do things like this. It's like they take away the potential for us to feel sympathy for him, and that's the problem. Is that,
getting back to Batman. Imagine if in The Dark Knight Rises, in the first fight with Bane, Bruce Wayne just kicks his ass. Okay,
movie's over.
An hour. Yeah, movie don't matter. It's like the rest of the movie. In the first fight, Batman wins. He clearly wins, but then something cheap happens, and he gets, Catwoman stabs him. Bane, one of the thugs gets him, and that's how Bane wins. There's not that drama being built up for the inevitable showdown again at the end of the movie. That's what you're doing.
Exactly. And actually, to use another movie comparison, it's kind of like, and I didn't hate this movie, but 300. What's the story structure of 300? Leonidas is awesome, and then Leonidas is awesome, and then Leonidas is awesome, and then Leonidas is awesome, and really the only thing that happens story-wise is that the Hunchback turns on them, and, you know, it takes like the whole fucking Persian army to kill 300 guys.
Right, and, you know, and another good movie comparison, Empire Strikes Back. That movie is, and Kevin Smith said this once, it is the single most depressing movie you'll ever watch. They don't win. They barely survive. Han is frozen. He's gone. You know, Luke loses an arm. He gets his ass kicked by Vader and then gets emotionally shattered learning that that man is his father. You know what? That's why you watch Return of the Jedi. Because you want to see, is Han going to be okay? Can Luke overcome his father? Can he actually beat Vader in a head-to-head battle now? That's what you want to see. WWE doesn't do that, and they're not smart enough, and this is what drives me insane, that they don't think to themselves, okay, let's have 1 week where John Cena isn't here because he's out selling an injury. You know, they're stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. It's like, well, John Cena isn't here, the ratings might drop, or we might not sell as much John Cena merchandise. You know what? If you could get a really, really, really hot feud where people are just dying to see Cena or any top babyface get revenge. Oh, well, another example, we talked about it, Del Rio. He wants revenge for Big Show beating up Ricardo. Now, I'm not a big fan of either guy, but I'll give that storyline credit. There's something there, the element of this guy's my best friend and this guy beat him up. That's a good story. But they kind of blew it on Monday where Del Rio showed up and beat the living crap out of Big Show in the hotel room.
Exactly. They were doing a good job with that. Actually, the whole thing with Ricardo was kind of the reason that I've been buying Del Rio as a babyface. Where I'm like, you know what? Yeah, because he doesn't feel like as much. I mean, he does pander a little bit now, but it's not like Cena, who feels like a total phony, or Sheamus, who feels like a total phony. It's just it's like he feels legitimately like his best friend's been hurt, and he wants to avenge his friend, and that's something that I can get behind. And I agree with you. They made a huge mistake by having him knock out Big Show.
Right. And by the way, I love the logic how apparently Big Show can beat up Ricardo all he wants, but Del Rio can't touch Big Show without getting suspended for SmackDown tonight.
It's weird. Oh, logic. I don't know how it works.
Logic. I want this to be a meme. Logic. It's your friend, WWE. It's your friend. It wants to help you. Please.
Well, I think that's about all I've got for tonight. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we go?
Not really, except for that WWE Network will never happen, no matter how much.
Wasn't that supposed to happen like 6 months ago or something?
It was supposed to happen 6 months ago. It was supposed to happen a year ago. I mean, they keep pushing back the debut day. It's like Chinese democracy. You know what? It's like the conclusion of All-Star Batman and Robin, to take it back to Frank Miller.
Yeah, that still hasn't ended, has it?
Apparently, like it was supposed to be retitled and like relaunched. I guess because maybe they were hoping to fool comic book fans into thinking, oh, thank God that awful series is over. I'll try this. Yeah. But yeah, we said from the beginning that a network wasn't a good idea, and well, you know, look, when Oprah says she can't make a network work, don't do a network, WWE. Plus, you know what? You're not doing very well with all the TV time you have.
Yeah, aren't you oversaturated as it is?
Yeah, I mean, it's 3 hours of Raw, which just feel like, hey, this is the main event. Hey, do you want to see what set up the main event? Hey, let's review what set up the main event. Hey, what's going to happen in the main event? Let's go to a promo. They were going to do like a tournament for an Intercontinental title shot on main event, and then for no other reason than I guess they changed their mind, they cancel it, which actually would have been a good idea. So
okay, here's the thing. I'm actually going to rant about that. A brief rant before we go. Okay, they're going to do the Intercontinental Cup, and it's going to be a tournament to decide who the new contender to the IC title is. Okay, good idea. It's nothing cutting edge. It's very simple, but okay, I'll go with it, and maybe it'll help establish some semblance of a mid-card. They ditch it, okay, this whole system to decide who the new contender is, they ditch it so they can push Bo Dallas as the new contender. Now, where my rant comes in, A, this Bo Dallas guy is green as gourds and doesn't even belong on TV, much less as a title contender. And B, okay, I'll go with you. You want to push Bo Dallas for whatever ungodly reason that I can't imagine? Okay, fine. Why would you get rid of the system to establish a new contender when you want to establish this guy as a new contender?
Because that would have made too much goddamn sense, Patrick.
I'm like, well, okay, if you want to push Bo Dallas, why didn't you just have him win the Intercontinental Cup?
You know what? Probably because they realized, hey, if we put Bo Dallas in that many matches, people are going to get that he sucks before we put the title on him. And
see, that's the thing. It's like, well, okay, if he's too shitty to do a tournament, then don't push him. Either way, you're stupid. Because there's no way, no scenario, no explanation that doesn't make you look stupid in this case.
Well, definitely. And you know what? Bo Dallas, maybe someday he becomes a good wrestler. He's not ready yet. There are guys in NXT, and I'm going to swear about this because there are guys, Cassius Ohno, Richie Steamboat, hell yeah, Trent Beretta. You have just all these different guys that have the potential to come in and get hot right away, and you pick the guy that isn't even the best wrestler between he and his brother. You pick the guy who clearly you picked because, oh, guess what? He's got good looks, and you can put him on out there and say, hey, try to shop around, I guess, to magazines or whatever you want to do. It was clearly a decision based on the fact this guy has a good, quote-unquote, look, and that's what you wanted. He's not ready. He's not that charismatic. You keep trying to push him as his, the next big thing. That's not going to work. We've seen this fail before. You should learn by now. Hell, look at Rocky Maivia.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me when Orton first showed up in the company, and he was like, hey, look at this guy. He's Randy Orton. And it was basically all he was, and he was horrible. Like, go back and watch Randy Orton in his early days, like 2002, when he first debuted. He was awful. Green as gourds. I mean, he was unbelievably, stunningly bad. Like, the best thing that ever happened to Randy Orton was when he got hurt. Because that allowed him to do the RNN bits, and it took him out of the ring and helped him, possibly give him time to freshen up and take the rough edges off.
Right, it also gave him a chance to cut that god-awful haircut that he had. And,
God, yeah.
And learn that he was a better heel than a babyface. And I'll say this, I've seen some video footage. I think they were trying to set Randy up originally as like a hunk babyface that all the girls were going to have a crush on, like all the divas were going to be crushing on. And that was going to be his gimmick. And thank God that never happened.
Yeah. Which, I know a lot of people don't like Randy Orton now and think he's boring, but go back and watch him in 2002. He's like, oh my God. It's like, he did not belong on television.
Well, he's boring in a whole different way now. He's boring in that he's a directionless babyface who really has kind of been overexposed, even if they do turn him heel again. Back then it was just, he's boring because he's awful and he has no charisma, and this is not going to work.
Absolutely, but all right, now we really do need to go because I'm starting to fall asleep here in the chair. Because not that you're boring me, Nick, but I've been up since 4 o'clock this morning, so I'm just sleepy.
Yeah. Well, you know what then? But let's call tonight. We're back, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully this will be a weekly thing finally again. We talked all kinds of stuff. We'll be back apparently next week to do our Elimination Chamber preview show. Until then, I'm Nick Knoll for Patrick Kelly. Good night.
Later.